It's something that we've talked about a great deal in our relationship. We've done content online about it and everything like that. And if you're not familiar with emotional monitoring, it definitely stems from codependency. It stems from complex trauma. It's one of those things that when you're brought up in a home where things aren't typically calm, then you learn how to monitor the entire house and monitor the moods and the shifting energies of everybody in the house. And so it's something that we both do. We're super incredibly good at it, right? We both have black belts in emotional monitoring.
We know how to be hypervigilant completely. We will monitor.
Yeah. We'll monitor with the best of them. And go ahead.
I would say as a coping mechanism, it's not like we're saying, okay, now I'm going to pay attention. We catch ourselves after it's already been happening. It's our natural instinct to go to monitor. It's our default mode, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the question was essentially, okay, you start to have awareness of something like this, right? Whether it's emotional monitoring or even just something else, awareness on the healing path and on the healing journey. And we always say awareness is the first step, right? We can't change the unconscious things unless we bring them into the conscious. And once you have awareness of something, do you just like stop doing it?
She's like, I know you just stop, right? You just stop.
Yeah. It's like, how do you change these behaviors, these coping mechanisms? How do you go through the process of really shifting all of it once you have awareness of it?
Yeah.
And when it comes to emotional monitoring, it's one of those things that it's not easy. Like you just said it, right? We still do it all the time.
You don't just stop. I mean, maybe somebody does. And if somebody does, like
nobody does.
Not taking power away, I'm like, you go for it, right? Somebody might think they do too, but it's something that we always are working on. It comes up. It comes up all the time. It's something that we bring awareness to and we catch ourselves and self-correct. And then sometimes we catch ourselves and we're like, yeah, it's because I'm right. I'm on point. I need to be here. So it is a constant thing that we work with a lot of grace because you don't just stop. You learn how to work with it.
Absolutely. And it's one of those things too, especially in the case of emotional monitoring. It's one of those things that you have to, your environment has to be relatively calm and safe and peaceful. I mean, peaceful maybe is a stretch. It'd be great, right? But the environment definitely has to be a safe environment before you can really start to shift out of this behavior, because it is a coping mechanism, because it is connected to your nervous system. And it's like you said, babe, where it's our default, right? And if our nervous system is activated, we're already going, because that's what it comes from. Yeah. It comes from that fight, flight, or freeze or fawn response where suddenly you're on point. You're observing everything.
It's because you weren't safe. You weren't safe and you had to be on point.
Yeah. And so if you're not in a safe environment, if it's the type of thing where you aren't, where things are still crazy and chaotic and hectic, and there's somebody in your life, whether it's a partner or, I mean, it can be anybody, right? It can even be coworkers and things like that. But somebody that causes you to kind of walk on eggshells around them, that's not really the time to
turn off this feature,
that behavior.
Yeah.
Now, I think this is an important thing to kind of dial in on and note is it's not to say that in those activated moments you can't be mindful of what's happening and aware of coping mechanisms that you want to change and shift. But I think from our experience we can definitely say that the shift happens when you're in a safe environment. The change really starts to happen the longer you can consistently be in a calm, relaxed, regulated state. That's when shifts really start to change and happen. Otherwise, it's going to be activation, like triage, fix the problem, right? And so something like emotional monitoring really has to start to shift. And over time is really the key thing too, where it happens progressively. Like, I'll just share a little bit about what it looks like for me, because it is something that I'm constantly working on. And what it looks like for me is I will have awareness that I'm doing it. Oftentimes it's with you. You're my go-to, right? You're the person that I monitor the most because you're the one that I'm so attached to for safety and survival and everything like that. And so if I'm scared or if I'm tired or if I'm hungry, if my nervous system is fried in any way, and fried might be an extreme, right? If it's activated in any way, then I will start to look externally for ways to regulate it and control situations. That's the other thing too that I think is really subtle about emotional monitoring is it's all about control. It's how can I control the situation so that I can feel safe in this moment? And the way that I was taught to do that, I'm speaking about myself now, the way that I was taught to do that was by trying to control the people around me. Because if I can control their actions and behaviors, then I can sit back and be like, okay, everything's calm and everything's safe now, right? So I have to be really mindful of it when it happens. And when I catch myself doing it, and what it looks like for me is I'm like, hey, baby, are you okay? What's going on? Are you feeling okay? What's up? Wait a minute. You just said you're okay, but I can tell by the way that you said it that you're not really okay. Why don't you tell me the truth of what you're feeling? And then I like get super dialed in on like, tell me what's coming up for you, rather than you just being like, I have gas or something, right? It's not to say that you have gas all the time, but
Right? Like, dude, I just got a fart. Like, give me some space.
hold on, I'm emotional. You feel like there's something coming up inside of you, baby. Like, yeah, I got a burp. I got heartburn. What do you want from me? But when I catch myself doing that, it's no longer the shame game, right? I used to just shame myself. I'm like, oh, you fucking loser. You're an adult and you're still, trying to emotionally monitor. So that process slowly over time, which we're actually going to talk about on this episode as well, right? Some of that reprogramming of shame and those stories that we tell ourselves. But that's the first step is I catch myself doing it. I acknowledge that I'm doing it, right? I'm like, oh, here I am again, emotionally monitoring. And then I skip all of that shame and blame and confusion, and I just go straight to what am I feeling? Yeah. What's going on in my nervous system right now that is causing me to feel this way, to react this way, to respond this way? And what I've learned is over time, the more work that I can do on regulating my nervous system, especially outside of activation, so outside of these activated moments, right? The more I can really hone in and focus on regulating my nervous system during calm moments. And literally I just said those words and then my first thought was like, oh, you're regulating your nervous system when it's calm. Good job. But that's not what it is. It's using those calm, relaxed moments to practice the techniques that keep me in a calm, relaxed state. And that helps my nervous system over time remain calm and become less activated over the simplest of things of like you walking into the room and being upset about something, right? And then, instead of spiraling out into monitoring you and becoming hyper aware and obsessive about what you're feeling, I can just be like, oh, what's up, babe? What's going on, right? So it's really, I think it boils down to how do we fix something, especially how do we fix emotional monitoring? How do we change these behaviors? It really boils down to recognizing what they're actually connected to and how it all stems from learning how to regulate your nervous system through healthy ways rather than kind of those maladaptive ways that were learned in childhood. What would you add, babe?
I love all that. Would add like just the starting off of the practicing in the calm moments and how crucial that is, how absolutely crucial that is.
So crucial.
Because like trying to be like, okay, I'm going to practice when shit hits the fan and I'm complete activation and I feel like everything's coming crashing down isn't the time to practice because you're in go mode at that stage. So being able to take time in the calm moments, which may be few and far between when you're starting off with, they may be like, here's 2 seconds that I have that I notice that I'm in some self energy. And so it's really connecting with yourself. What do I feel? Getting to know yourself a little bit in that space, what your energy feels like. Your calmness helps you separate when you're trying to pinpoint other people's actions, feelings, emotions, and behaviors. And so finding yourself, finding your techniques, finding your breath, what it feels like, what your shoulders feel like when they're down your spine. There's different like things to be in your body in a somatic way that is a calming, getting into your body, getting your attention within in the calm states. It's really, really challenging to do that when you're activated. So as much as you can practice in those spaces helps you have those skills that you're building, like that muscle memory for when activation does come up. So, and for a while, a lot of times you don't get this idea to practice until after you've already gone through a cycle. Like it came up here as all this, and now afterward, and then you start shaming yourself. I should have done this. I shouldn't have done that. This is where I did wrong. And that's a great moment instead of shaming yourself to be like, oh, here, I have awareness, and now I'm going to practice that for a minute. So that's a really, really big deal. And a lot of times, like for myself, if I'm in a calm state, I don't want to practice activation. I don't want to practice like what I'm going to do in these things. I just want to ride that wave. I'm like, I'm in a good mood. Don't bother me. Like, I just want to feel okay for a minute. So it's really hard to think, okay, now I'm going to use this to work. But some other things that I wanted to add is it's really tricky the way that our brains work and our nervous system will work when we've been in a situation where we've cultivated this skill as a survival technique because we weren't safe.
Like the emotional monitoring.
The emotional monitoring. It's really fascinating how our brains work because they do a couple of different things. So when you've been conditioned to be in a dangerous environment, because usually it's that conditioning, it's that slow burn. It's not all of a sudden I'm in a really toxic environment because you know you're in a dangerous situation. Then it's that conditioning that takes place where things became acceptable. And then they just kind of built on each other. So you have this conditioning to where you have learned from them and from yourself on this part to start gaslighting yourself. This isn't scary. This isn't that bad. This is my fault. All the ways that it'll come up. So where you feel like you can't really trust yourself in dangerous spots. And when you start having awareness of that, your brain then becomes hypervigilant on never making that mistake. So everything is dangerous. So a lot of times when we don't feel safe, we actually might be. But the way that our nervous system is responding is that, no, this isn't safe. I'm not going to make this mistake again. I'm paying attention. Now, obviously, like if you're not safe, you're not safe. This isn't, again, where you gaslight and tell yourself, no, it's really okay. It's just my mind playing tricks on me. If you are not safe, you are not safe. And it's not the time to practice being in a calm state. But when that does come up and you find yourself emotionally monitoring, when being hypervigilant on their moods and seeing what's going on, is this actually an environment where safety is at risk? Or is this an environment where I don't feel like I have control? Is this an environment where I'm what-ifing all of these other different outcomes? Is this a situation that I am like leaning into the fear and creating a space that isn't exactly not safe? But again, that's slippery slope because when you've been conditioned, you will gaslight yourself that it's not really there. So it is almost like two ends of the spectrum. You can look at that paradox of, is it this or that? Is it I'm telling myself it's safe and it's not, or I'm telling myself it's dangerous and it's not. And you have all of this space in between that you have to learn to navigate, or you get to learn to navigate on that journey. So it is a ride. It is a journey. It is a one moment at a time. What is actually happening right now? Is this environment a dangerous environment? Am I in danger right now? Are my children in danger right now? If that's yes, then there's different steps. But it's like, if you're like, yes, absolutely, name it. Like, what is it? What is actually happening? Are they what ifs? What ifs a lot of times aren't, a lot of times are creations as opposed to what is. And again, this is a broad, you have to use your own judgment in this space, because if you're like, this is a work, this is a journey space. I don't know what you're experiencing in that moment. We don't know. And this might not apply to you, and it might. So it's just something to get curious about. What does it mean to you? How does that feel in your space? Does it resonate? And if so, like what's next with that? What else can you look into and get curious about?
We were meant to be. We were meant to be.